corrupt. We're just brutally incompetent. We're amongst the dumbest people that have ever existed. And we are the least qualified people for our jobs. But don't call us corrupt. James Comey was the head of the FBI in 2015, 2016. When Trump came down that escalator, the FBI from that point forward, along with many other executive branch agencies, realized that Trump was the first real outsider threat to their institutional authority that we've had since maybe the days of Ross Perot. As such, they decided that they were going to go to war with him. Now, I've always felt that these bureaucracies and like leaders of organizations like the State Department, the FBI, the IRS, and a lot of other groups like, for example, wealthy oligarchs like George Soros or people that are running the mainstream media, academia, etc. These people have more institutional power than the Democratic politicians that it's easy to hate, like Joe Biden, who was a human vegetable. Does anyone really think that he was running his administration? Or even someone like Hillary Clinton. See, the scandal with Russiagate was never to me about Hillary Clinton and Hillary must go to jail and she must be punished. Don't get me wrong, if Hillary committed crimes, which she no doubt did, I would love to see her held accountable for them. But the real threat to the country was what our executive bureaucracies were doing, in particular the FBI, though there are many. And they're working with sort of NGOs and other groups, as you're seeing through USAID, to enforce the actions that they want to entrench their own hegemony on these sort of institutions, because that's where the real power structures are in our country. So Trump was seen as a threat to them. And by the way, if you're a lefty, Bernie Sanders was also seen as a threat to them. But what they decided to do was take Bernie out through a primary. And there's all sorts of legitimate and illegitimate things they did to Bernie Sanders. Suffice it to say, they were able to use their institutional power to stack the deck against Bernie in a way that even if there was a chance, which I'm not so sure there was, but if there was a chance for him to win a Democratic primary in an even up type situation, once they stacked the deck in the way they did, then it was inevitable that Hillary Clinton was going to be the nominee. It was Hillary's time. She was supposed to be the nominee in 2008. But unfortunately, when it comes to victimhood status, her status as a woman was superseded by Barack Obama's status as a black man. So she had to wait her turn for 8 years and instead was Secretary of State. Incidentally, let's not forget with the news of the day that, oh my goodness, Trump's taking this airplane from Qatar. Hillary Clinton got what, $1 million or 10 million, something like that, to the Clinton Foundation while she was at the Secretary of State. One of the things I say is we should always hold people to the standards that they seek to hold everyone else to. Hillary tweeted out yesterday, Qatar wouldn't offer this money unless they wanted something in return. Okay, Hillary, that sounds like an admission to me that they asked you for something in return when they were sending money to your foundation. So what did they ask for? Of course, no one in our mainstream media will talk about that, partly because Hillary Clinton's all but irrelevant in the public eye now. But don't get it wrong, she represents this sort of bureaucracy in the background and the people that are movers and shakers and really run things. And so this should be called out, this sort of absurdity of the positions. Remember, whatever they are accusing you of is what they themselves have done. They're hypocrites because they don't care about the issue they're talking about, but they know you do. So they think that it's a win to tell the American public that Trump is possibly getting something for benefit from Qatar and is going to do a quid pro quo and give them something back. But they don't care about that because they were perfectly fine when all of the Democratic politicians were engaged in the very thing they're alleging Trump of doing. But a little digression there. When Trump decided to come down that escalator, they thought, no problem. By the way, it's not just the Democrats. Establishment Republicans, your Mitt Romneys of the world, they were like, all right, fine. Give the people their vote. Let the populists have their day. Okay, they won the primary. Now they'll get crushed by Hillary Clinton. Remember, I think it was the New York Times was saying right before the 2016 election that Hillary had like a 98% chance of winning or something like that. Their hubris was their downfall. They believed their own bullshit. They thought that there was zero chance that they could lose the election. And so the election went apace, and much like Brexit, it blew up in their face. They thought if you just give the plebes their symbolic vote, we'll stack the deck so that they don't win, and then we could say, hey, you had your chance, sorry you lost. But it didn't quite work that way, did it? And so both before the election and then afterwards, a plan was instated to use all of these institutional mechanisms to take down Donald Trump, to smear him in the public eye, and to make sure that he couldn't make institutional reforms because he would be busy defending himself the entire time. John Brennan talked about, I believe in June of 2016, there were memos showing that he was personally talking to Barack Obama, that there was a plan by Hillary Clinton to smear Trump as an asset from Russia. We know from a fact of, Susan Rice's memo, that when it came to going after Mike Flynn, They all had a little powwow in Barack Obama's office, and it was Joe Biden himself that suggested using the Logan Act, a law from the 1800s that hasn't been applied. I think it's only ever been applied one time, to use that as an excuse to go after Mike Flynn. These are the same people that are blaming Trump for, oh my God, he's weaponizing this system to go after his opponents. Who started it? Nonetheless, Hillary's team got opposition research sourced by a suspected Russian spy, sent that opposition research to the FBI. The FBI didn't attempt to verify it, used that opposition research to get FISA warrants to spy on a member of Trump's team, which through the two-hop rule meant that they had access to everyone that Carter Page talked to and everyone that those people talked to, which would effectively mean they had all communications legally they could have from the entire Trump administration. And those warrants proceeded into after Trump won the election. Now, as I was talking about with the Crucible crew earlier, isn't it amazing how every time you see instances of this corruption at an institutional level, I'm biased, so I think that it's overwhelmingly through the Democrats, but don't get it twisted. It could happen institutionally at the Republican level as well. But specifically with the Democrats, almost every time they get caught in something that's a 98% chance that it looks like corruption, what's their defense? Does anyone know? What do they say? Top lawyer at the FBI illegally spied on Trump's team with FISA warrants. What was their excuse? Are they corrupt? What did they say? Let's see. Who could get it? Who's the winner here in the audience? Who's going to be able to nail this? What's their excuse? They don't say, yeah, you're right. They were corrupt. What do they say? Who's it going to be? I should get some Jeopardy music. It's not oops. It's close. It's not, you can't talk about that. It'll kill trans people. That's not bad. It's not threat to, Crisco, longtime viewer. He gets it. That's right. It's not that we're corrupt. It's that we're brutally incompetent. We're just incompetent. You see, we at the FBI didn't know that you're not supposed to change evidence to the opposite of what it says in order to spy on the president of the United States. We just didn't know. We didn't know that. Whoopsie daisy. We didn't know. Today, the story is Jake Tapper and the rest of the media. Sorry, we didn't know. We didn't know that Joe Biden was cognitive declined. His entire team hid that from us. Of course, we could have pushed, but no, we let his team control. We said, whoopsie, it's a big whoopsie on our part. We're just grossly incompetent. We are worse at journalism than the average person that spent 5 minutes watching any video of Joe Biden. They're better at journalism than us, but we're not corrupt. We're just brutally incompetent. We're amongst the dumbest people that have ever existed. And we are the least qualified people for our jobs. But don't call us corrupt. Don't call us corrupt. We're just grossly inept. That's it. Enter James Comey. Now, why do I bring up sort of the Russiagate thing? Because I need something to talk about. No, because one of the arguments is these people say it's like, oh, it's just incompetence. Now, to look at this, you would say this beggars belief that it would be incompetence that high-level FBI attorneys don't know that this was immoral or that this was corrupt. It beggars belief. But once we escape that, then we'll look at this and see if we could find the conclusion that it's most likely corruption or incompetence. The real answer is it hardly matters. If these people are that incompetent, then they should be out of a job anyways. But one of the things we would do is we would look at the potential motivations and the behavior exhibited by the people that are being accused of either this incompetence or corruption. For example, if there are personal motivations and comments being made by the people that have engaged in this behavior that show that they are likely to want a certain outcome, then that's solid evidence that corruption is potentially a more likely scenario. We know that people like Peter Strzok that serendipitously ended up being in charge of both Crossfire Hurricane, which was the Trump investigation in 2016, and the mid-year exam, which was the investigation into Hillary Clinton and her server. He was talking about needing an insurance policy to stop Donald Trump, and Trump supporters smell, and he couldn't believe that Hillary wasn't winning 1,000,000 to 1. Kevin Kleinsmith, the lawyer for the FBI that changed evidence to the opposite of what it said in order to help get a FISA warrant against Carter Page, he was privately communicating things like #resist about Donald Trump. But they always say, nope. Just because they were biased against Trump and just because they took actions that are unfathomable that someone of any level of competence, let alone someone who's been promoted to leadership in organizations like the FBI, doesn't mean it's corrupt. Just straight old incompetence. And besides, there's no evidence that the people at the top like James Comey were part of that. Well, it's not true. The behavior of James Comey, both before he was forced out of office and after, shows that he had an axe to grind with Donald Trump. For example, for no reason whatsoever, he decided to keep contemporaneous notes, which he would then leak to members of the press in order to smear Donald Trump after he was fired. Sounds like someone that had an axe to grind with Trump from the get-go. Incidentally, I do believe, I could be wrong about this, but I do believe that a grand jury recommended charges against James Comey, but the ever feckless plant mole shithead Bill Barr declined prosecution. Then after James Comey was fired, we saw him with his I'm with her mug doing the media tour on talking about what a danger, how bad Donald Trump was. Anyone with any shred of integrity whatsoever would say it's blatantly obvious that James Comey hates Donald Trump. He has reason to. Donald Trump's the first mainstream politician in the presidential office in my lifetime that actually poses any sort of threat to institutional power. And it's not even necessarily because he's such a good moral guy. To me, it has little to do with that. It has to do with Trump's just like not part of that team. And he's like, I'm the man, I'm the big dog. That's why I was elected. So now, I'm not just going to sit back and let you guys do what you want. I'm your boss. You'll do what I say. They don't want that. They don't care for that at all, do they? Enter today. James Comey puts the following post on X, or Instagram maybe. This is James Comey put out today. Cool shell formation on my beach walk. It says, for those that can't see, it says 8647. Now, in case you've been living under a seashell and you don't understand what that's a reference to, I don't believe anyone will try to say that Comey didn't know what 47's a reference to, of course. 47th President Donald Trump. 86, reference eliminate, kill. That's what 86. So James Comey, the former head of the FBI that led an illegal investigation into Donald Trump that was created by Donald Trump's opponent, who left his opponent Hillary Clinton off the hook even after her team deleted subpoenaed emails, after 2 assassination attempts of Donald Trump, and credible claims that even foreign countries such as Iran were trying to kill Trump. I'm not so sure I believe those, but nonetheless, that's the official narrative. The FBI itself has said that. Despite all of that, the former head of the FBI is going to his social media and putting messages out that basically mean someone should kill Trump. That's what's going on. That's what happened today. The former head of the FBI. There it is, 8647. Now it's the former leader of the FBI. Again, just to rehash, started the investigation into Trump, knew that it was a suspected Russian spy, signed off on FISA warrants that later were found to be illegal, took home evidence to leak to the press to smear to Donald Trump, which a grand jury recommended an indictment. I believe, I could be wrong about that, but I believe he was at least recommended for a grand jury. That much I know. Didn't press charges against Hillary Clinton, even when the most blatant of crimes happened, which was the deletion of subpoenaed emails. Not that Hillary herself did it. I don't have proof of that, but someone in our team did, and they got a full, absolute immunity deal. And then said, yep, I did it myself. James Comey said, sounds good to me. Went on a little global tour after he was fired, using mugs that said, I'm with her, talking shit in Donald Trump. We had 2 assassination attempts against Trump. And James Comey today puts this out, dog whistling to eliminate Donald Trump. And that's what it was. Even after those assassination attempts. Now, people are saying, yeah, but he didn't know 86. He didn't think that meant kill. He just thought it meant remove. So maybe he meant impeach. Well, one, the context surrounding is, if Donald Trump would have said something like, I don't know, fight like hell, Democrats would say, well, what's the context? Even though every politician says something like, we got to fight. What's the context? Because of the context, that means we have to assume he was calling for violence. Well, what's the context of James Comey saying this? After 2 assassination attempts? After a Democrat-led insurrection against ICE facilities here recently? And that's what he's saying? But even if we accept all of that, you know what? Never mind. It was all misunderstanding. James Comey, he's not calling for death. Why would we give him the benefit of the doubt when his explanation is one of the most blatant bullshit lies I've ever heard? So if we're willing to give him the benefit of the doubt up to the point where he gives his explanation for why he presented this. Now, do you think it's fair? Let me ask you in the audience. Is it fair? Okay, before we knew, when he just put that post up, maybe you could say, well, we don't know. We don't know what his explanation is for why he put this. We don't know. So maybe we can't bring judgment. I disagree, but okay, it's an argument. But now we know what his explanation was. So before we say, well, maybe he meant this, maybe he didn't mean kill, he meant, just remove, impeach or something. Okay, you could make that argument up until the point where James Comey tells you why he did this. Is that fair? So all the people in chat that were saying, well, the argument's going to be, he didn't mean 86 like kill, he meant 86 like remove. So it could be impeachment. It could mean to vote Democrat in the midterms. All right? But now we don't have to guess what James Comey was thinking because he's told us. So let's see what James Comey said. Here's his explanation. He removes the post and he says, I posted earlier a picture of some shells I saw today walking on a beach, which I assumed were a political message. I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, so I took down the post. Now, I want you just to soak this in for a minute. I want you to read this post and see how many ways you could come up with that this is the most blatant bullshit thing that you've ever heard. Let's start with this. I'm supposed to believe that the former head of the FBI had no clue that the term 86ing someone didn't mean potential implications for violence. The former head of the FBI, whose job, in large part, is supposed to be going after people that commit heinous acts of violence, hate groups, etc. He didn't know. Here's the next absurdity. He didn't even put those shells up. He just found them. He's walking down the beach. Just, hey, look at that. There's a shell formation. I think I'll go check it out. Oh, it says 8647. How cool. Because he can't admit that he or someone he knows put that message up, else he can't claim ignorance on what 86 means. So he has to pretend, oh, I just found them. But here's the most ridiculous point. If you think about this for even a second, he says, I assumed this was a political message. He didn't know what it was. Now, this is a guy that clearly hates Donald Trump. So if he just was like, oh, I assumed the 47 part was about Trump, but I didn't know what the 86 meant, then why would he take a picture and post it? For all he knew, 86 could have been a positive thing about Trump.